Document. Part 1. In the endless darkness of space. Far beyond the reach of Earth's most advanced telescopes, something stirred. It wasn't a star collapsing, or a comet streaking across the void. No, this was something different, something alive. For centuries, the Valith had watched the universe with quiet curiosity. Their civilization, ancient and wise, thrived on patience and observation. They were beings of light and energy, their forms shifting like liquid crystal under the faint glow of dying stars. But even they could not ignore what had begun to ripple through the cosmos. It started as a faint hum, a whisper, drifting through the void. At first, the Valith dismissed it as background noise, the random static of the universe. But over time, the hum grew louder, more distinct. It carried patterns, rhythms, and eventually, voices. The source of this disturbance was a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. The Valith called it Kitharus, though its inhabitants knew it simply as Earth. For generations, the Valith believed Kitharus would remain silent, just another rock spinning quietly in the infinite blackness. But now, the silence was broken. The signals coming from Earth were unlike anything the Valith had encountered before. They were chaotic, filled with bursts of music, laughter, and strange repetitive noises that seemed to carry meaning. There were languages, so many languages, that the Valith struggled to make sense of them all. Some messages were simple, like numbers counting upward, or images of geometric shapes. Others were complex, layered with emotion and intent. And then there were the sound songs that soared and dipped, instruments that wailed and whispered, and voices that spoke of love, war, hope, and despair. Kalen, one of the youngest members of the Valith Council, found himself drawn to these transmissions. He spent countless cycles analyzing them, piecing together fragments of human culture. To him, the signals were a puzzle waiting to be solved. Each new discovery revealed more about the creatures, sending them beings made of flesh and bone, fragile yet resilient. Kalen marveled at how quickly they adapted, how their technology evolved almost overnight. In less than 2 centuries, they had gone from primitive radio waves to sophisticated satellites, capable of reaching deep into space. But not everyone shared Kellen's fascination. Many among the council saw the signals as a threat. "They are unpredictable," said Elder Vorthan, his voice resonating like distant thunder. "Their emotions drive them to act without reason. Look at their history: wars, destruction, greed. What will happen when they turn their gaze outward? Will they bring chaos to the stars?" Kalen listened quietly, his form shimmering faintly. With uncertainty, he understood Vorthan's concerns. Humanity's progress was undeniable, but so was their potential for harm. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that dismissing them entirely would be a mistake. "Perhaps we should observe further," he suggested, his tone measured. "We cannot judge them based solely on their past. If we intervene too soon, we risk shaping their future in ways we cannot foresee." Vorthan's luminous eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Kalen thought he might argue. Instead, the elder simply nodded. "Very well. Let us watch and wait. But no, if they prove dangerous, we must act decisively." While the Valith debated in their crystalline citadel, light years away, humanity remained blissfully unaware of their cosmic audience. On Earth, life continued as it always had: chaotic, beautiful, and full of contradictions. Cities buzzed with activity, their streets alive with people rushing to work, school, or home. Skyscrapers pierced the clouds, their windows reflecting the sun's golden rays. Beneath the surface, scientists worked tirelessly in laboratories. Engineers designed machines that defied imagination, and artists painted visions of worlds yet unseen. Among these dreamers was Lieutenant Daniel Hayes, a man whose passion for exploration burned brighter than most. Daniel had joined the United Space Corps straight out of college, driven by a desire to push the boundaries of human knowledge. Now, at 32, He commanded a team aboard the Eclipse, a sleek exploration vessel tasked with mapping uncharted sectors of the galaxy. The ship was state-of-the-art, equipped with sensors capable of detecting even the faintest traces of alien life. But so far, their mission had yielded little more than empty space and dead stars. That changed on a cold morning in late November. The Eclipse was cruising through a remote region of the Milky Way when its scanners picked up an anomaly, a metallic object drifting silently against the backdrop of eternity. At first glance, it looked like debris, perhaps the remnants of a long-forgotten satellite. But as the ship drew closer, the object revealed itself to be far more intriguing. "It's artificial," murmured Captain Laura Bennett, her sharp green eyes scanning the data on the main console. She was a no-nonsense leader, respected for her calm demeanor and quick thinking. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her uniform was immaculate, as always. "Daniel, take a team and investigate." Daniel nodded, already moving toward the airlock. He selected 3 crew members to accompany him: Ensign Maya Torres, a brilliant engineer; Corporal Jake Riley, a seasoned security officer; and Dr. Olivia Grant, the ship's xenobiologist. Together, they suited up and prepared to board the mysterious object. As they approached, the true scale of the artifact became apparent. It was enormous, easily the size of a small building. Its surface was smooth and silver, etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the dim light. Strange symbols covered every inch, their meaning impossible to decipher at first glance. Daniel felt a thrill of excitement mixed with unease. This was it, the moment they had been searching for, proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. "Careful," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." The team landed softly on the object's surface, their boots making barely a sound. Maya immediately set to work examining the metal, running scans with her handheld device. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen," she muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The material doesn't match any known element. It's almost organic." Before anyone could respond, the artifact came to life. A low hum vibrated beneath their feet, growing louder until it filled the air around them. Then, without warning, a beam of light shot upward, forming a holographic projection above the object. The image flickered at first, then stabilized, revealing a series of symbols and shapes that shifted rapidly. It was a message, but in a language none of them understood. "What is this?" Jake asked, his hand hovering near the weapon strapped to his side. Despite his tough exterior, there was a hint of fear in his voice. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But whatever it is, it's trying to communicate." Back on the Eclipse, Captain Bennett watched the footage from the team's helmets, her expression unreadable. She turned to Dr. Grant, who had stayed behind to monitor the situation. "Thoughts?" Olivia hesitated, her mind racing. "It's clearly intelligent. The patterns are too structured to be random, but decoding it, that's going to take time." Time was something they didn't have. Unbeknownst to the crew, the artifact had triggered a response from its creators. Deep within the Valith Citadel, alarms blared as sensors detected unauthorized access. Kalen stood frozen, his translucent form rippling with shock. Humanity had found one of their probes, a relic left behind eons ago, and now they were tampering with it. "They move faster than we anticipated," Vorthen growled, his voice laced with frustration. "What do we do?" Kalen took a deep breath, his thoughts swirling. Humanity had arrived like a storm, unexpected and unstoppable. But storms could be weathered if one knew how to prepare. "We observe," he said finally, "and we learn. They may surprise us yet." Little did he know, the surprises were only beginning. Document Part 2. The artifact hovered silently in the void, its holographic projection casting eerie shadows across the Eclipse's observation deck. The crew gathered around, their faces illuminated by the shifting patterns of light. Each Symbols seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if trying to convey something urgent. Yet, no matter how hard they studied it, the meaning remained elusive. Dr. Olivia Grant leaned closer, her eyes narrowing as she traced the glowing lines with her finger. "It's not random," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "There's structure here. This isn't just noise, it's communication." Captain Laura Bennett crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. She had always been a woman of action, someone who preferred clear answers and decisive steps. But this was different. For the first time in her career, she felt out of her depth. "Can you understand it?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with impatience. Olivia hesitated, glancing at the others before shaking her head. "Not yet, but I think we can figure it out if we have enough time." Time, however, was a luxury they weren't sure they had. Back on Earth, news of the discovery spread like wildfire, despite strict protocols designed to keep such events classified. Whispers of an alien artifact reached the public within hours. Social media erupted with speculation, theories ranging from government conspiracies to divine intervention. News outlets scrambled to piece together fragments of information, creating a chaotic mix of facts and fiction. By morning, the entire world was talking about it. In Washington, D.C., President Rachel Monroe sat in the Oval Office, her brow furrowed as she listened to a briefing from General Marcus Cole. The general was a towering man with graying temples and a voice that commanded attention. His military career spanned decades, and he had seen his share of crises, but none quite like this. "They're calling it the signal," Cole said, tapping a folder on the desk. "Early reports suggest it's some kind of alien probe. We don't know what it wants or what it's capable of." Monroe leaned back in her chair, her fingers drumming against the armrest. She was a pragmatic leader, known for her ability to remain calm under pressure. But even she couldn't ignore the weight of the situation. If this truly was humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial life, the implications were staggering. "What do we do?" she asked, her tone measured but firm. "We prepare," Cole replied without hesitation. "We don't know their intentions, ma'am. It could be peaceful or it could be hostile. Either way, we need to be ready." While politicians and military leaders debated strategy, scientists around the globe raced to decode the artifact's message. Among them was Dr. Emily Carter, a linguist renowned for her work in deciphering ancient languages. Her office at the University of Chicago was cluttered with books, papers, and half-empty coffee cups, evidence of countless late nights spent unraveling mysteries. When she received a call asking for her expertise, she didn't hesitate. "This is it," she whispered to herself as she reviewed the footage sent by the Eclipse. Beside her stood Ryan Mitchell, her graduate assistant and closest collaborator. Ryan was young, barely in his mid-20s, but his sharp mind and relentless curiosity made him invaluable. Together, they pored over the symbols, searching for patterns or repetitions that might offer clues. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Emily admitted after hours of analysis, "but there are similarities to certain human languages, structures that repeat, sequences that seem intentional." Ryan nodded, scribbling notes furiously. "Maybe they're using universal concepts, numbers, shapes, basic ideas. That's how we'd try to communicate with aliens, right?" "Exactly," Emily said, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "If we assume they're trying to establish common ground, we might be able to build a bridge." Their progress was slow, but promising. Within days, they identified several recurring elements, a series of dots that resembled numbers, geometric shapes that hinted at dimensions, and rhythmic pulses that could represent time. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Meanwhile, the Eclipse continued its investigation, relaying data back to Earth in real time. On board the ship, tensions began to rise. Lieutenant Daniel Hayes found himself caught between two opposing forces. Captain Bennett, who favored caution, and Corporal Jake Riley, who advocated for a more aggressive approach. Jake was a soldier through and through, trained to neutralize threats quickly and efficiently. To him, the artifact represented an unknown danger, one that needed to be contained. We should disable it, Jake argued during one heated discussion in the mess hall. If it's transmitting data back to wherever it came from, we're giving them everything they need to find us. And if it's not, Daniel countered, his voice calm but firm. What if it's trying to communicate? Disabling it could send the wrong message, or worse, provoke them. Jake scowled, clearly unconvinced. You're assuming they want to talk. What if they're planning an attack? We can't afford to wait around and find out. Captain Bennett intervened before the argument escalated further. Enough, she snapped, her sharp tone silencing both men. We'll proceed carefully. Until we know more, we treat this as a scientific mission, not a military operation. Her decision did little to ease the growing unease among the crew. Even Maya Torres, usually optimistic and level-headed, found herself struggling to focus. As she worked tirelessly to analyze the artifact's composition, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every scan revealed new layers of complexity, each one raising more questions than answers. The material defied conventional physics, behaving almost like living tissue rather than inert metal. And then there were the faint vibrations, subtle tremors that seemed to synchronize with the holographic display. Something's controlling it, Maya muttered to herself, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the settings on her scanner. But what? Or who? Unbeknownst to the crew, their actions were indeed being monitored. Far away, hidden within the depths of space, the Valith observed with growing concern. Kalen stood in the Citadel's central chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of the artifact and the humans interacting with it. His translucent form shimmered with anxiety as he watched Daniel and his team examine the probe. They're learning faster than expected, Vorthan remarked, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. He stood beside Kalen, his massive frame radiating authority. This complicates matters. Kalen nodded slowly, his thoughts racing. Humanity's rapid adaptation was both impressive and unsettling. They had already identified key elements of the probe's design, and their attempts to decode the message showed remarkable ingenuity. But it also raised troubling questions. Would they interpret the probe's purpose correctly? Or would their fear lead them to misunderstand its intent? We must tread carefully, Kalen said finally. Their emotions drive them: curiosity, fear, ambition. If we act too soon, we risk escalating the situation. Vorthan frowned, his luminous eyes narrowing. And if we wait too long, what happens when they uncover the truth about the probe? Kalen didn't answer. He couldn't. The truth was complicated, layered with centuries of history and decisions made long before his time. The probe was part of an ancient program designed to explore and prepare planets for Valith colonization. It carried some nanobots capable of terraforming environments to suit their needs. But the program had been abandoned when the Valith realized the ethical implications of altering worlds without consent. Now, remnants of those old missions floated silently through the cosmos, relics of a darker era. If they discover the net, Vorthan trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. The consequences were unthinkable. Back on Earth, public opinion swayed wildly as more details emerged. Some saw the artifact as proof of humanity's place in the universe, a sign that they were not alone. Others viewed it as a threat, a harbinger of invasion or domination. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds demanding transparency and action. Conspiracy theorists claimed the government was hiding evidence of alien contact, while religious groups declared the artifact a divine miracle. Amidst the chaos, astrophysicist Alex Turner published a controversial paper that captured global attention. In it, he argued that the artifact might be a precursor to invasion, scouts sent ahead to gather intelligence. His theory gained traction among skeptics, fueling fears of imminent conflict. Military leaders took notice, quietly ramping up defenses, while preparing contingency plans. Despite the mounting tension, progress on decoding the message continued. Emily and Ryan worked around the clock, their efforts bolstered by contributions from experts worldwide. Slowly but surely, fragments of meaning began to emerge. Patterns formed words, and words became sentences. The message was fragmented and incomplete, but its essence was clear. A greeting, followed by a request for understanding. "It's reaching out," Emily said softly, tears welling in her eyes as she stared at the translation. "They're saying, hello?" Ryan smiled faintly, exhaustion evident in his slumped posture. "Let's hope they mean it. They're unpredictable." Document. Part 3. The tension aboard the Eclipse was palpable, thick like storm clouds pressing against the ship's walls. Lieutenant Daniel Hayes paced the narrow corridor outside the observation deck, his mind racing with possibilities. He had always believed in exploration, the thrill of discovery, the joy of uncovering something new. But this was different. The artifact wasn't just a relic of some ancient civilization. It was alive, intelligent, and possibly watching them. Every decision they made felt like walking on thin ice over an abyss. Captain Laura Bennett sat alone in her quarters, staring at the glowing hologram of the artifact displayed on her desk. She had been a leader for years, trained to make tough calls under pressure. Yet, nothing in her experience prepared her for this moment. The artifact represented a crossroads, not just for the crew, but for all of humanity. If they handled it wrong, the consequences could ripple across generations. Her instincts told her to play it safe, to gather as much information as possible before taking any drastic steps. But others weren't so patient. Corporal Jake Riley stood in the armory, methodically checking his weapon for the third time that day. To him, caution was a luxury they couldn't afford. The artifact was alien, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. It didn't matter if it was trying to communicate or not. What mattered was that it existed and that it might pose a threat. Jake's thoughts turned darker as he imagined worst-case scenarios, secret weapons hidden within the probe, or worse, signals calling for reinforcements from somewhere deep in space. He clenched his jaw, resolved to act if the situation called for it. Meanwhile, Ensign Maya Torres worked tirelessly in the engineering bay, running simulations on the artifact's behavior. Her scans revealed patterns. She couldn't fully explain fluctuations in energy readings that seemed almost responsive, as if the probe reacted to their presence. She recorded her findings meticulously, knowing they might hold the key to understanding its purpose. But even as she worked, doubts gnawed at her. What if they misinterpreted the data? What if their actions triggered something irreversible? Back on Earth, the debate raged on. President Rachel Monroe convened an emergency meeting with her advisors, military leaders, and top scientists. The room buzzed with conflicting opinions, each voice louder than the last. General Marcus Cole argued for immediate action, urging the deployment of advanced weaponry to neutralize the artifact if necessary. "We can't afford to wait," he insisted, slamming his fist on the table. "If it's hostile, we need to be ready." Across the table, Dr. Emily Carter countered with calm reasoning. "We don't know enough yet," she said, her voice steady, despite the chaos around her. "Every step we take should be measured, deliberate. Rushing in could make things worse." Monroe listened intently, weighing the arguments carefully. She understood the gravity of the situation, the weight of making a decision that could shape humanity's future. Finally, she spoke, her tone firm but measured. "For now, we proceed cautiously. No aggressive action unless absolutely necessary. Let's focus on communication. If they're reaching out, we owe it to ourselves to respond." Her words did little to quell the growing divide among humanity's leaders. Some supported peaceful engagement, believing cooperation could lead to unprecedented advancements. Others saw only danger, convinced that humanity's survival depended on strength and dominance. Protests erupted worldwide, reflecting the fractured sentiments. In New York City, thousands gathered outside the United Nations headquarters, holding signs that read, "Peace through understanding," and "Protect Earth at all costs." Social media amplified the discord, turning the conversation into a battleground of ideologies. On board the Eclipse, the crew struggled to find common ground. Captain Bennett called a meeting in the briefing room, determined to address the mounting tensions. Daniel, Jake, Maya, and Olivia sat around the table, their expressions a mix of frustration and determination. Bennett began by laying out the facts as they knew them. The artifact was transmitting a message. Its composition defied known science, and its origins remained unknown. Then she opened the floor for discussion. "We need a plan," Bennett said, her gaze sweeping across the room. "Not just for dealing with the artifact, but for keeping this mission intact. We're a team, and we need to act like one." Jake leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "With respect, Captain, I think we're wasting time. This thing could be dangerous. We should disable it and analyze it later, safely." Daniel shook his head, his voice firm but respectful. "And what happens if disabling it causes more harm than good? We don't know how it works or who sent it. For all we know, we'd be declaring war." Maya chimed in, her tone cautious. "Both sides have valid points. Maybe there's a middle ground. We keep studying it, but we also prepare for the worst. That way, we're ready no matter what." Olivia nodded in agreement. "I think Maya's right. We can't ignore the risks, but we also can't let fear dictate our actions. Communication is key here." Bennett considered their input, her expression thoughtful. Finally, she made her decision. "We'll continue analyzing the artifact, focusing on decoding the message. At the same time, we'll develop contingency plans in case things go south. Jake, I want you to coordinate with security. Be ready, but don't act unless I give the order. Understood?" The team nodded, though Jake's scowl suggested he wasn't entirely satisfied. Still, orders were orders, and he respected the chain of command. Unbeknownst to the crew, their internal struggles mirrored debates happening light years away. Within the Veilous Citadel, Kalen faced increasing resistance from factions, skeptical of his approach. Commander Xerax, a hawkish leader with a reputation for aggression, openly challenged Kellen's stance during a council session. "Patience is a luxury we cannot afford," Xerax declared, his crystalline form shimmering with intensity. "These humans are reckless, driven by emotions that cloud their judgment. They will not stop until they've invaded our territory, claimed our resources, and destroyed everything we've built." Kalen listened quietly, his translucent body rippling faintly with unease. He understood Xerax's concerns. Humanity's rapid advancement was undeniable, but he also believed that fear should not dictate their response. "We must give them a chance," Kalen replied, his voice calm but resolute. "If we strike first, we risk becoming what we fear most. There is wisdom in restraint." Xerax sneered, clearly unconvinced. "Your idealism blinds you, Kalen. These humans are not like us. They do not value knowledge or peace. They seek power and domination. If we do not act, they will." The council chamber fell silent, the weight of the argument hanging heavy in the air. Elder Vorthan stepped forward, his massive form radiating authority. "Enough," he commanded, his voice resonating like distant thunder. "This matter requires careful consideration. For now, we observe. But no, if humanity proves to be a threat, we will not hesitate to protect ourselves." As the council dispersed, Kalen lingered behind, his thoughts swirling with uncertainty. He believed in diplomacy, in the possibility of peaceful coexistence. But doubt crept in, whispering questions he couldn't answer. What if Xerax was right? What if humanity's arrival truly heralded chaos? Back on Earth, astrophysicist Alex Turner found himself at the center of controversy. His paper suggesting the artifact might be a precursor to invasion had sparked widespread panic, leading to calls for increased military readiness. Military leaders cited his work to justify aggressive measures, while scientists accused him of fear. Despite the backlash, Alex refused to back down. He believed his theory was grounded in logic, not paranoia. "The evidence speaks for itself," he told a reporter during a live interview. "This artifact isn't just floating out there randomly. It's part of a larger system, possibly a network designed to scout potential targets. Ignoring that possibility would be reckless." His words fueled further division, polarizing public opinion even more. Some hailed him as a visionary, warning humanity of impending doom. Others dismissed him as an alarmist, spreading unnecessary fear. Amidst the turmoil, Emily Carter and Ryan Mitchell continued their work, determined to decode the artifact's message. Progress was slow, but steady, each breakthrough bringing them closer to understanding its true purpose. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily stared at the latest translation on her computer screen. Fragments of the message were beginning to form coherent sentences, revealing glimpses of meaning. Words like peace, curiosity, and connection appeared repeatedly, hinting at intentions far less sinister than many feared. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the significance of their discovery. "They're trying to reach out," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "They're saying hello." Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, smiling faintly, despite his exhaustion. "Then let's make sure we say hello back." As night fell over the planet, humanity stood divided, yet united by a shared sense of awe and uncertainty. The artifact loomed large in their collective consciousness, a symbol of both hope and fear. On board the Eclipse, the crew prepared for whatever came next, their resolve tempered by the knowledge that their actions would shape the future. And far beyond the stars, the Valeth watched and waited, caught between the promise of peace and the specter of conflict. Document Part 4. The universe held its breath. For days, the artifact continued to transmit its cryptic message, a steady hum of symbols and patterns that humanity struggled to decipher. On board the Eclipse, the crew worked tirelessly, their movements fueled by adrenaline and determination. Each new discovery brought them closer to understanding the probe's purpose, but also deepened the mystery surrounding it. The artifact wasn't just communicating, it seemed to be learning. Its holographic projections shifted subtly in response to the crew's actions, as if adapting to their presence. Lieutenant Daniel Hayes spent hours studying the symbols, his sharp eyes tracing the glowing lines with growing fascination. He noticed small changes in the pattern's repetitions that hadn't been there before. It was as if the artifact was trying to simplify its message, breaking it down into pieces they could understand. "It's teaching us," he murmured one evening, his voice tinged with wonder. Maya Torres, who had joined him in the observation deck, nodded slowly. "It's like it knows we're struggling," she said, her tone thoughtful. "Maybe it's adjusting to our level." Captain Laura Bennett overheard their conversation from the doorway. She stepped inside, her expression unreadable. "Or maybe it's testing us," she suggested, folding her arms across her chest. "We need to stay cautious." Her words hung in the air, a reminder of the stakes involved. Despite the progress they were making, the artifact remained an unknown, a puzzle wrapped in uncertainty. Every breakthrough carried the risk of misinterpretation, every step forward the potential for unintended consequences. Still, the crew pressed on, driven by curiosity and the hope that they could bridge the gap between two civilizations. Back on Earth, the situation grew increasingly volatile. Public opinion swayed wildly, torn between fear and fascination. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds demanding answers from their leaders. Some called for immediate action, urging governments to neutralize the artifact before it became a threat. Others argued for restraint, insisting that humanity's survival depended on cooperation rather than conflict. Social media amplified the chaos, turning the debate into a global spectacle. In Washington, D.C., President Rachel Monroe faced mounting pressure to take a stand. Military leaders pushed for aggressive measures, citing Alex Turner's controversial theory about the artifact being a precursor to invasion. Scientists countered with evidence suggesting the probe's intentions were peaceful, pointing to Emily Carter and Ryan Mitchell's ongoing efforts to decode its message. Caught between conflicting advice, Monroe struggled to find a path forward. "We can't afford to make assumptions," she told her advisors during a late-night meeting. "Every decision we make has to be based on facts, not speculation." General Marcus Cole frowned, clearly frustrated. "With all due respect, ma'am, waiting for facts might cost us everything. If this thing is hostile, we need to act now." Monroe's gaze hardened. "And if it's not, what happens if we escalate unnecessarily? We could start a war we don't want or can't win." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Finally, one of her advisors spoke up. "What if we send a message back? Show them we're willing to engage." It was a risky idea, but it resonated with Monroe. Humanity couldn't remain silent forever. If the artifact truly represented first contact, then responding even cautiously was essential. She gave the order to begin crafting a reply, enlisting the help of linguists, scientists, and diplomats to ensure the message conveyed peace and curiosity. The task was daunting, but it offered a glimmer of hope in an otherwise uncertain situation. Meanwhile, millions of miles away, the Valith watched with growing unease. Kalen stood in the Citadel's central chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of the artifact and the humans interacting with it. His translucent form shimmered faintly with anxiety as he observed their attempts to decode the message. They were close to uncovering the truth about the probe's purpose, and when they did, he feared their reaction might shatter any chance of peaceful coexistence. "They're persistent," Elder Vorthen remarked, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. He stood beside Kalen, his massive frame radiating authority, perhaps too much so. Kalen nodded slowly, his thoughts racing. Humanity's adaptability was both impressive and unsettling. In less than a week, they had made significant progress in understanding the artifact's language. Their ingenuity inspired awe. It also raised troubling questions. Would they interpret the probe's purpose correctly, or would their emotions lead them to misunderstand its intent? "We must prepare for the worst," Zyrax interjected, his crystalline form flickering with intensity. "If they discover the nanobots, they will see us as invaders. We cannot allow that to happen." Kalen hesitated, torn between caution and optimism. The nanobots were a relic of the Valith's past, a reminder of decisions made long before his time, designed to terraform planets for colonization. They represented a darker chapter in their history, one the Council had vowed never to repeat. But erasing that legacy wouldn't be easy, especially if humanity uncovered the truth. "What do you propose?" Kalen asked finally, his voice steady, despite the turmoil within him. Zyrax's expression darkened. "We disabled the probe, cut off their access before they learn too much, and risk provoking them," Kalen countered, his tone firm. "They're already suspicious. Destroying the artifact might confirm their worst fears." Vorthen stepped forward, his luminous eyes narrowing. "Then, what do you suggest, Kalen? That we sit idly by while they unravel centuries of secrets?" Kalen took a deep breath, his form rippling faintly with resolve. "No, we reach out. If they're as intelligent as they seem, they'll understand our intentions if we give them a chance." The council chamber fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. Finally Vorthen nodded reluctantly. "Very well. But no, if your gamble fails, we will not hesitate to act. As the Valith debated their next move, humanity took a bold step forward, using data gathered by the Eclipse and insights from Emily and Ryan's work. Scientists crafted a message designed to convey peace and curiosity. The transmission included simple images and sounds, geometric shapes, mathematical sequences, and recordings of human voices speaking greetings in multiple languages. It was a humble offering, a gesture of goodwill meant to bridge the vast gulf between worlds. When the message was sent, the crew of the Eclipse gathered in the observation deck, watching anxiously as the signal traveled toward the artifact. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the holographic projection above the probe shifted, forming a new pattern of symbols. This time, the message was clearer, more deliberate. Fragments of meaning began to emerge, revealing words like understanding, connection, and hope. "It's responding," Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face as she reviewed the footage from her lab. Beside her, Ryan grinned, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "They heard us," he said, his voice filled with awe. "They actually heard us." News of the breakthrough spread quickly, sparking a wave of optimism around the world. For the first time in days, humanity dared to believe that peaceful contact was possible. Leaders issued statements praising the achievement, while scientists hailed it as a monumental step forward. Even skeptics found themselves moved by the significance of the moment. But the celebration was short-lived. Hours after receiving humanity's message, the artifact transmitted a final sequence of symbols, then went silent. The holographic projection faded, leaving only the sleek metallic surface behind. Confusion rippled through the crew of the Eclipse as they scrambled to determine what had happened. Had the artifact malfunctioned, or had it fulfilled its purpose? Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. Sensors detected a massive energy surge emanating from deep space, heading straight for Jupiter. Moments later, a colossal vessel emerged from the void, its iridescent hull shimmering like liquid light. It dwarfed the Eclipse, its sheer size, a testament to the power and sophistication of its creators. The Valith had arrived. On board the mothership, Kalen stood alongside Commander Zyrax, their forms glowing faintly against the dim interior. Below them, holographic displays showed images of the Eclipse and its crew, captured through quantum sensors embedded within the artifact. Humanity's faces were etched with shock and awe, their fragile forms dwarfed by the enormity of the situation. "We've done all we can," Kalen said softly, his voice tinged with both hope and apprehension. "Now, it's up to them." Zyrax scowled, clearly unconvinced. "Let us hope you're right for all our sakes." As the Valith fleet loomed closer, humanity froze in collective awe and terror. Cities braced for the unknown, military forces mobilized, and leaders scrambled to formulate a response. On board the Eclipse, Captain Bennett addressed her crew, her voice steady despite the tension gripping the ship. "This is it," she said, her green eyes shining with determination. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." Far beyond the stars, the storm of humanity's arrival reached its peak. Two civilizations stood on the brink of connection, their futures intertwined by fate and choice. Whether that connection would lead. Document. Part 5. The arrival of the Valith mothership sent shockwaves through humanity. For a moment, time seemed to stop, as the colossal vessel hovered near Jupiter, its shimmering surface reflecting the pale light of the distant sun. On board the Eclipse, the crew stared out at the alien fleet in stunned silence. The sheer scale of the ship was overwhelming, a gleaming behemoth that dwarfed even Earth's largest space stations. It wasn't just its size that inspired awe. It was the intricate patterns etched into its hull, glowing faintly like veins of living energy. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries, but now that it was here, fear outweighed wonder. Captain Laura Bennett broke the silence first, her voice steady, despite the tension crackling in the air. "All hands, prepare for contact," she ordered, her sharp gaze scanning the bridge. "Maya, I want a full scan of the ship weapons, propulsion systems, anything you can find. Jake, arm the defense systems, but do not engage unless I give the order." Her commands snapped the crew back into action. Maya rushed to her console, fingers flying over the controls as she initiated a detailed analysis of the alien vessel. Jake moved with quiet efficiency, ensuring every weapon on the Eclipse was ready for deployment. Daniel stood frozen by the observation window, his eyes locked on the massive ship outside. He felt a strange mix of emotions: fear, excitement, and something else he couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe, or dread. Back on Earth, panic spread like wildfire. News outlets broadcast live footage of the Valith fleet, their anchors struggling to maintain composure as they described the scene unfolding millions of miles away. Social media erupted with speculation, ranging from wild conspiracy theories to heartfelt prayers. Military bases around the globe went on high alert, scrambling, jets and activating missile defense systems. In Washington, D.C., President Rachel Monroe convened an emergency meeting with her advisors, her expression grim but determined. "We don't know their intentions yet," she said firmly, cutting off General Marcus Cole before he could argue for immediate retaliation. "Until we do, we hold our ground. No aggressive actions without my approval." Cole clenched his jaw, clearly frustrated, but he nodded reluctantly. The room fell silent as everyone waited for updates from the Eclipse. Meanwhile, scientists like Emily Carter and Ryan Mitchell worked feverishly to analyze the situation, hoping to provide insight that might ease tensions. On board the Valith mothership, Kalen stood in the command chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing images of Earth and its people. His translucent form shimmered faintly with anxiety as he watched humanity react to their presence. Some were frightened, others defiant, but many seemed curious, their faces filled with questions. Kalen felt a pang of guilt, knowing how much uncertainty they had caused. This was meant to be a moment of connection, not chaos. "They're afraid," Commander Zyrax observed coldly, his crystalline body pulsing with disdain. "As they should be." Kalen turned to face him, his voice calm but firm. "Fear is natural, but it doesn't have to define us or them. We came here to observe, not intimidate." Zyrax sneered, clearly unconvinced. "Observation won't protect us if they decide to attack. You've seen their history, Kalen. They destroy what they don't understand." Before Kalen could respond, Elder Vorthen stepped forward, his towering frame radiating authority. "Enough," he commanded, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "This is not the time for division. Kalen, proceed with your plan, but be prepared to act decisively, if necessary." Kalen nodded, though his heart weighed heavy with doubt. He believed in diplomacy, in the possibility of peaceful coexistence. But what if Zyrax was right? What if humanity's arrival truly heralded conflict? With a deep breath, Kalen activated the communication array, broadcasting a message directly to Earth. The transmission began with tones and frequencies adapted from human culture, snippets of music, mathematical sequences, and geometric shapes. Then came the words, spoken haltingly in broken English learned from intercepted broadcasts. "We come in peace. We seek understanding." The message reached Earth moments later, sparking a flurry of reactions. Some saw it as proof of the Valith's goodwill, while others dismissed it as deception. In New York City, crowds gathered in Times Square, staring up at giant screens displaying the alien transmission. Reporters struggled to translate the fragmented phrases, their voices trembling with emotion. Across the globe, leaders debated how to respond. President Monroe addressed the world shortly after receiving the message. Her tone measured but reassuring. "Today marks a historic moment, not just for our nation, but for all of humanity. We have made contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. Their message suggests a desire for peace, but we must remain vigilant. Our priority is to ensure the safety of our planet while pursuing dialogue." Her words offered little comfort to those who feared the worst. Military leaders urged caution, reminding everyone that the Valith's true intentions remained unknown. Scientists, meanwhile, scrambled to decode the rest of the transmission, searching for hidden meanings or clues about their technology. Back on board the Eclipse, the crew listened intently as the message repeated itself. Daniel replayed the audio several times, trying to pick up nuances in the tone and phrasing. "They're learning our language," he murmured, half to himself. "It's not perfect, but it's close enough." Olivia Grant nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "Do you think they're sincere? Or is this just a distraction?" Daniel hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I don't know, but we have to assume the best until we have reason to believe otherwise." Captain Bennett agreed, though her instincts told her to stay cautious. She ordered the crew to prepare for potential communication, assigning roles based on expertise. Daniel would lead the effort to establish dialogue, while Maya focused on technical analysis of the Valith ship. Jake remained on standby, ready to defend the Eclipse if needed. Hours passed as humanity and the Valith exchanged tentative messages. Each transmission brought new revelations, slowly bridging the gap between two vastly different civilizations. The Valith explained that they were explorers, driven by curiosity and a desire to learn. They acknowledged the artifact as one of their ancient probes, designed to study planets and prepare them for colonization, a practice they claimed to have abandoned long ago. But not everyone trusted their explanation. General Cole argued that the Valith were hiding something, pointing to inconsistencies in their story. Why send a probe if they weren't planning to invade? He demanded during another heated meeting in the Oval Office. "We can't afford to take their word at face value." Monroe listened carefully, weighing the risks against the potential rewards. Finally, she made her decision. "We'll continue talking for now, but we also prepare for the worst. If they give us any reason to doubt their sincerity, we act immediately." Her orders sent ripples through military and scientific communities alike. While some supported her balanced approach, others criticized her for being too cautious or too trusting. Public opinion remained divided, with protests erupting in major cities worldwide. Some called for unity and cooperation, while others demanded action to protect Earth. Amidst the chaos, Emily Carter and Ryan Mitchell achieved a breakthrough. Using data from the Valith transmissions, they identified key phrases and symbols that hinted at deeper meaning. One phrase stood out: "Balance is fragile." It appeared repeatedly, accompanied by images of planets thriving alongside those ravaged by destruction. Emily interpreted it as a warning, a reminder of the consequences of unchecked ambition. "If we push too hard, we risk losing everything," she explained during a press conference. "This isn't just about us or them. It's about finding a way to coexist without harming each other or the universe itself." Her words resonated with many, offering a glimmer of hope in an otherwise uncertain situation. Slowly but surely, humanity began to shift its focus from fear to understanding. Leaders emphasized the importance of patience and diplomacy, urging their citizens to embrace the opportunity for growth and discovery. On board the Valith mothership, Kalen watched these developments with cautious optimism. Humanity's adaptability continued to impress him, even as their divisions troubled him. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges neither side could fully anticipate. But, for the first time, he allowed himself to believe that peace might be possible. "Let us hope," he whispered softly, his form shimmering faintly with resolve. "For all our sakes." As night fell over Earth, the storm of humanity's arrival began to settle, if only slightly. Two civilizations stood on the brink of connection, their futures intertwined by fate and choice. Whether that connection would lead to harmony or conflict remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: The universe had changed forever.